Alright. Before we even begin, do one thing for me. Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. Because for the next few minutes, I'm not just going to share an idea with you, I'm going to hand you a key that a very small, very wealthy group of people hope you never ever find. Now let's talk about a name you almost never hear at dinner parties, on financial news shows, or in university classrooms. It's not a name that drips with the familiar scent of new money or old dynasties. It's not Musk, not Bezos, not even Rockefeller, though he'll make a cameo later. The name is Florence Scovel Shinn. A century ago, precisely in 1925, she was an artist and illustrator in New York, a woman navigating a world just beginning to acknowledge women's voices. And from that position she launched a small, unassuming green book into the world titled The Game of Life and How to Play It. This book wasn't a dense economic treatise, it was a concise, powerful manual under 100 pages, and upon its release it sold with a fervor that was impossible to ignore. Then, almost as quickly as it appeared, it seemed to vanish. You won't find it prominently displayed in the finance or business sections of your local bookstore. It's almost entirely absent from the syllabuses of economics and business programs. Yet, for 100 years, it has persisted, passed from hand to hand like a secret, with countless individuals swearing it changed their lives. So, why the institutional silence? Why has a book with such a profound impact been relegated to the esoteric back alleys of self-help? The answer is simple and terrifyingly disruptive. In under 100 pages, Florence Scovel Shinn laid out a premise that threatens the very foundation of our economic structure, that money and success are not finite resources you must compete for, not a golden ticket you have to wait in a long, desperate line to receive. Instead, she proposed that prosperity is a state of consciousness, a frequency of thought, much like a radio station that you can tune into at any moment, from anywhere. This single idea is poison to the people who own the radio stations and sell the tickets, the vast interconnected systems of banking, corporate finance, and even government, who all profit from your belief that you need them to survive. The entire edifice of modern capitalism is built on the premise of scarcity, the idea that you can generate abundance from within, using only your mind and your words, makes them profoundly nervous. So, if you're still watching, it's because a part of you deep down has always suspected that the game is rigged. You felt that invisible wall, that sense that no matter how hard you work, you're playing by a set of rules designed for you to lose. Good. Stick around. The next few minutes might just hand you the compass they never ever wanted you to have. How many times have you been told, money doesn't grow on trees? It's the first lesson in a lifelong curriculum of lack. It's repeated by our parents, our teachers, and our leaders, until it sinks into our bones and feels like an irrefutable law of the universe, as solid as gravity. The entire script of modern life is a hymn to scarcity. The school system prepares you to be a compliant employee, not a sovereign creator. The news cycles blast you with stories of economic downturns, inflation, and market crashes, keeping you in a state of low-grade financial anxiety. Advertisements are meticulously crafted to make you feel inadequate, to create a void that can only be filled by their product. The dominant financial advice is always defensive: save every penny, pinch your desires, invest in this complicated mutual fund for 40 years, work overtime, and if you're ever short, don't worry, there's always a loan available. This entire system, from education to media, screams one word: scarcity. It's the foundational assumption that keeps the gears of the machine turning. Now imagine for a single radical moment that this scarcity is not a natural law, but a manufactured illusion. An illusion designed with one purpose: to keep you a loyal, dependent, and profitable customer. The elites, the top 1%, don't hate the poor or the middle class. They need us to be stuck, perpetually striving but never quite arriving. The more deeply we internalize the story that money is a scarce and difficult to obtain commodity, the easier it becomes to sell us the one product that truly makes them rich: debt. Debt. With compounding interest. Mortgages, car loans, student loans, credit cards. These are not services. They are financial instruments that leverage our fear of lack against us. Fear makes the sale. Your fear of not having enough today makes you a customer for a credit card. Your fear of not being able to afford a home makes you a customer for a 30-year mortgage. Your fear of being left behind makes you a customer for their entire system. Then, into this carefully constructed prison of belief, Florence Scovel Shinn walks in and calmly places 2 sticks of dynamite at its foundation. 2 simple sentences that, if truly understood, wreck the entire pitch. First, your words are your magic wand. And second, money obeys the mind that directs it. These aren't just pithy affirmations, they are declarations of personal sovereignty. They propose that the creative force of the universe is not locked away in a bank vault on Wall Street, but resides within your own consciousness, activated by the words you speak and the thoughts you hold. This idea doesn't just challenge the system, it yanks the entire rug out from under every economic model and every social structure designed to keep us asking for permission to live the lives we desire. It tells you to stop looking outside for a savior and to start looking within for your source. To truly grasp the audacity of her message, you have to picture New York in 1925. This was the roaring heart of the Jazz Age, a city of dizzying contradictions. Skyscrapers were piercing the clouds, testaments to a new era of engineering and ambition. Down below, Wall Street was a whirlwind of ticker tape, cigar smoke and frenetic energy, minting fortunes for a select few. Neon signs were beginning to flicker to life, selling the American dream in dazzling, electrified letters. Yet, for millions, this prosperity was a distant spectacle. Women had only just gained the right to vote 5 years earlier, their roles largely confined to the domestic sphere or low-paying service jobs. It was a world run by men, for men. And into this world walks Florence Scovel Shinn. She is not a banker, an economist, or a politician. She is an artist, born into a distinguished family. Her great-great-grandfather was a signer of the Declaration of Independence, and educated at the Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts. She had a successful career as a book illustrator, but by the 1920s, she was in her 50s, divorced from her artist husband Everett Shinn, and facing a future with dwindling prospects. For a woman of her age and status, the respectable path would have been to find a quiet, stable gig, perhaps as a secretary or a companion. Instead, she did something utterly radical. She sat down in her New York apartment, and drawing on years of metaphysical study within the New Thought movement, wrote the game of life and how to play it. She wasn't an economist, but as an artist, she knew that both words and images have the power to sketch reality into being. Unable to find a mainstream publisher willing to take a chance on such an unconventional book, she published it herself. What happened next was a quiet phenomenon. The first small printing, sold out of her apartment and in a few esoteric bookshops, was gone in weeks. Then a second. Word of mouth was her only marketing. Secretaries, seamstresses, clerks and actors, people who felt locked out of the Wall Street boom, were passing the little green book to one another. Soon stores were begging her for more copies. By the end of the year, she was no longer just a writer, she was a teacher, speaking to packed, smoky rooms across the city. She was teaching waitresses and receptionists how to speak into existence their desires, how to use spiritual law to multiply money forever. At first, the city's elites, the bankers, the industrialists, the established clergy would have laughed. This was women's spiritual fluff, harmless wishful thinking for the desperate, but their laughter likely faded when the message started to take root. What happens when a secretary stops seeing herself as a victim of her low wages and starts affirming her divine right to abundance? What happens when a small business owner stops fearing his competitors and starts blessing them, trusting that there is more than enough business for everyone? Their clients, their employees, their debtors started canceling their psychological accounts of fear and dependency. If everyday people can generate their own sense of prosperity without needing a loan, who is left to buy the bonds and pay the interest? Florence's work was never banned by law, there was no dramatic censorship, it was far more subtle. Her books just quietly went out of print for lack of demand, or were shuffled into the dusty corners of bookstores. It's a funny thing, ideas that empower the individual at the expense of the institution have a strange habit of disappearing without a trace. Florence's entire philosophy wasn't some complex, unattainable system. She boiled it down into a series of simple, repeatable habits of mind and speech. These habits are the real secret, the practices that the architects of the scarcity system truly do not want you practicing, because if you did, you would no longer be their customer. It all begins with what comes out of your mouth. This isn't just woo-woo mysticism, it's a practical application of how your brain is wired. Your brain contains a network of neurons called the reticular activating system, or RAS. Think of the RAS as a sophisticated filter or a security guard for your conscious mind. It stands between the billions of bits of sensory information bombarding you every second and decides what to let through to your awareness. When you declare a goal or repeat a statement with conviction, you are giving your RAS its marching orders. You are programming it to find evidence in your reality that matches your declaration. Say, "I'm always broke, I can never get ahead," and your RAS will dutifully scan your world for proof. It will highlight the unpaid bill, the unexpected expense, the missed opportunity. Your brain literally cannot tell the difference between a strongly held belief and objective reality. It will work to close the gap. Now flip the switch. Say, "I am a magnet for money, and it flows to me easily and steadily." Your RAS receives a new directive. It begins to scan for channels of abundance. You'll suddenly notice a business opportunity you overlooked before. You'll have a creative idea for a new income stream. Someone will mention a job opening that's perfect for you. Florence called this giving the order to your subconscious mind, which she saw as a faithful, powerful servant that carries out any order you give it without question. Her books are filled with real examples. She tells of her student, a woman named Emma, an underpaid secretary in the 1920s who felt trapped. Florence instructed her to begin every morning by affirming with feeling, "I am a wonderful worker for wonderful pay. I earn $200 a week and I love it." Now, $200 a week was a massive sum in 1925, the equivalent of a high-level executive's salary. It seemed absurd, but Emma did it. Within 2 weeks, she received an unexpected promotion and a raise. Within 4 weeks, a former employer contacted her out of the blue, offering her a brand new position at a salary that tripled what she had been making. The rich hate this technique because it is free, it is simple, and it transfers the power to create wealth from their institutions directly into your own mind and mouth. It short-circuits their entire system of external validation. This is the second and perhaps more subtle weapon. Stop pushing against the problem. Most of us spend the vast majority of our mental and emotional energy in a state of resistance. We wrestle with what we don't want. We complain about our debt. We worry about our bills. We get angry about our boss. We fight with our circumstances. Florence taught that this is like wrestling with a spring. The harder you push against it, the more forcefully it pushes back. Resistance, she said, is what keeps a negative situation cemented in your reality because you are feeding it your most precious resource, your attention and energy. Florence's radical solution, based on the teaching "resist not evil," is to drop the fight and switch the station. This is not passivity or giving up. It is an act of profound spiritual wisdom. Instead of screaming at the static of your problems, you calmly change the frequency. So, instead of thinking, "I'm drowning in debt, I hate these bills," you practice a non-resistant thought like, "I give thanks that my relationship with money is now one of peace and abundance. All my obligations are met under grace in perfect ways." Your mind immediately flips from the frequency of fear, which can only perceive problems, to the frequency of solutions. You stop energizing the debt and start energizing the divine intelligence that can solve it. The story of Thomas, a mechanic on the verge of bankruptcy, perfectly illustrates this. His shop was failing, and he spent his days complaining bitterly about the new, larger competitor down the street. He was in total resistance. Following Florence's advice, he stopped talking about the competition and started repeating a new affirmation: "I love seeing my shop full of happy customers who pay generously and in cash for my excellent work." He blessed his competitor instead of cursing him. 3 months later, his income had doubled without spending a single dollar on advertising. His attitude had shifted, making customers feel more welcome. His mind, now free from the torment of resistance, noticed opportunities he had been blind to before. The elites squirm at this idea because their most powerful incentives are based on struggle and fear. If we stop struggling against our problems and instead expect divine solutions, their fear-based products, from high-interest loans to divisive political rhetoric, lose all their power. This final habit is the one that terrifies them the most, because it is the most powerful. Act as if. This is faith in motion. Visualizing your goal is wonderful, but it is only half the equation. The universe responds to decisive action. You must take the first physical step as though the answer you seek is already a reality. You must act as if your prayer has already been answered. This is what Florence called active faith. Want a raise or a better job? Don't just affirm it. Spend your last $20 on a course that increases your skills or buy a new tie for the interviews you know are coming. This small, seemingly illogical gesture is a powerful vote of confidence in your new identity. It sends a thunderous message to the subconscious mind and to the universe that you are not just hoping, you are expecting. You trust that the money you invest will come back multiplied, because you are now a person to whom money flows. Rich folks, and the financial systems they build, hate this principle because it shatters the cardinal rule of the scarcity mindset. Only take calculated risks. They want you to wait until you have all the money in the bank before you invest. They want you to wait for proof. But active faith is about acting before the proof arrives. It's about creating the cause, knowing the effect is guaranteed. If regular people stop acting from a place of doubt and calculation and start acting from a place of certainty and faith, the entire market becomes unpredictable. Consumer behavior can no longer be modeled. Political polls become meaningless. The house doesn't always win if the players are no longer playing by the house rules, they are playing by a higher law. So why would anyone want to bury the teachings of a sweet, unassuming lady who spoke of love and abundance? Because her message is more revolutionary and far more dangerous to the established order than any political manifesto. Think about it. Communism, the great ideological threat of the 20th century, told the working class, the elites are exploiting you, band together, rise up and seize what is rightfully yours. It was a call for an external revolution to redistribute external resources. Florence Scovel Shinn, however, delivered a far more subversive message. She said, "Everything you could ever need or desire is already yours by divine right residing within you. You need no one's permission to claim it." The difference is monumental. One is a fight for external power, the other is the realization of internal power. If you believe wealth is an external commodity to be fought over, you remain a pawn in the game, a captive customer for political saviors, economic experts, and revolutionary leaders who promise to fight for you. But if you believe that wealth is an internal state of consciousness that you can generate yourself, you stop being a customer altogether. You no longer need a credit card to feel secure, you no longer need to buy luxury goods to signal your worth. You no longer need to vote for an economic savior to rescue you, you become sovereign. An entire population of sovereign individuals who do not need the system is the single greatest threat to that system's existence. Elites cannot allow a philosophy to spread that makes the masses self-sufficient, so they couldn't burn her at the stake, but they could erase her with silence and discredit her with ridicule. The smear campaign was subtle but effective. Her ideas were labeled as naive wishful thinking. Mainstream psychology and science dismissed them as having no scientific basis. The established religious authorities warned their flocks to watch out for black magic and heretical ideas, pointing out that she twisted scripture and taught a false Christ within that put man in the place of God. Her teachings were framed as a dangerous form of blaming the victim. If you're poor, it must be your own fault for thinking poor thoughts. All of these criticisms were designed to make the ideas seem foolish, dangerous, and unchristian. Meanwhile, as the story goes, the very titans of industry who publicly championed the gospel of hard work and scarcity were privately exploring these same ideas. It was whispered that John D. Rockefeller himself was spotted reading The Game of Life and How to Play It on his yacht, and that Andrew Carnegie, another industrial giant, quietly jotted down affirmations in his private diary. We can't prove these rumors, but they point to a classic elite tactic: promote one set of rules for the public while living by another in private. In public, total silence. In private, a desperate search for any advantage, including the power of the mind. If you're feeling that little buzz in your chest right now, that spark of recognition that says this is true, then do me a favor and hit that like and subscribe button. It tells the algorithm that this is a conversation that needs to be heard. On this channel, we dust off the books and the ideas that the elites hope stay forgotten. Stick with me, because at the end of this video, I'm going to read you the single most powerful decree from her work, the one they truly hope you never hear. A full century has passed since 1925, and the pattern of suppression and rediscovery continues. Go to Amazon and look up Florence Scovel Shinn. Her book, The Game of Life, consistently ranks around 3,000 or lower in the broad self-help category, but you will almost never see it break into the top 100 of the business and finance category. This isn't an accident. This is intellectual gatekeeping. By classifying her work as spiritual fluff, it is kept away from the people who are actively seeking practical financial solutions. Imagine if, tomorrow morning, millions of people woke up and truly believed that abundance is a station they can tune to, not a prize they must win from a competitor. The entire market for pay-later luxury goods would collapse. The advertising industry built on creating feelings of lack would crumble. The multi-trillion-dollar debt industry would lose its customer base. Yet despite the silence, cracks are appearing in the dam. On TikTok, the hashtag Florence Scovel Shinn has exploded with over 20 million views. A new generation, disenfranchised by the traditional promises of work hard and you'll succeed, is discovering her little green book. Every single day, you can scroll through videos of young people sharing their own proof. A barista posts a video, eyes wide with shock. "Y'all, I did the affirmation from the Game of Lives for 3 days, and my boss just gave me a totally unexpected raise and a better schedule." A freelance graphic designer shares a screenshot. "I recited her decree for abundance, and an old client just came back and paid for a massive project up front in cash." These aren't paid actors, they are living proof. These digital messages in a bottle prove that the message never died. It just took a 100-year nap, waiting for a generation connected enough to wake it up. So what do you do with this dangerous information? It's not enough to know the game is rigged. You have to learn the new rules and start playing. Here are 3 simple, powerful moves you can make, starting today. 1. Pick one empowering line, and make it your law. Don't just say it, feel it. Let it be the first thing you say when you wake up, and the last thing you say before sleep. Try one of these from Florence's work. "I am a magnet for easy, fast, steady money," or "My supply comes from God, and is endless and immediate," or "I cast all my burdens upon the Christ within, and I go free." Say it out loud into a mirror, looking yourself in the eye, until you feel a shift inside. 2. Identify your primary resistance and consciously let it go. Where in your life are you pushing against the current? If your bank balance gives you anxiety, stop checking it 10 times a day. That is an act of resistance. Instead, every time you feel the urge, take a deep breath and write down, "Everything in my world is lining up to grow my account." If you are resentful of someone's success, stop complaining about it. That is resistance. Instead, bless them and affirm, "What God has done for them, He now does for me and more." Practice dropping the fight. 3. Act before the evidence shows up. This is the master move. Take one small step today that demonstrates your faith in your coming abundance. Buy the slightly nicer organic coffee without a pang of guilt. Tip the delivery driver more generously than you think you can afford. Go through your closet and give away the clothes you're saving for when you lose weight, making space for the new you. Each of these small gestures is a vote you cast for your new identity, a signal to your subconscious that the change is already underway. Do these 3 things for 21 days. Not because 21 is a magic number. Modern neuroscience shows that habit formation can take much longer, sometimes 60 days or more, to truly rewire the brain. But use 21 days as your initial commitment, your declaration of intent. You are not doing this because Florence is grading you. You are doing it because your brain needs consistent, repeated instructions to begin carving the new neural pathways of prosperity and to start pruning the old, tired pathways of lack. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that your words are your wand, but she also warned that a decree only becomes law when you speak it with authority and feel it in your bones. You are not a beggar asking for scraps. You are a king or queen decreeing what is already yours by divine right. Are you ready? Find a quiet place, stand up straight, take a deep breath, and prepare to state this as an absolute fact of your reality. Here it is. By the divine law governing my mind and my world, I decree that my infinite supply comes to me now. Let it arrive by unexpected routes, from happy hands, with no strings attached. I release it, I receive it, and I spend it joyfully, knowing it returns to me multiplied under grace. And so it is. Say it 3 times a day upon waking at your midday meal and right before you fall asleep. Do not beg. Do not plead. State it with the same calm, confident tone you would use to order your favorite meal at a restaurant, knowing it is being prepared for you. Every time you do this, you are turning a cosmic dial. A door you thought was locked begins to crack open. Maybe it manifests as an unexpected refund check in the mail. Maybe a cash-paying client appears out of nowhere. Maybe a job offer lands in your inbox that doubles or triples your income. I am not promising you a magic trick. I am promising you alignment. When you align your words and your feelings with the frequency of abundance, abundance has no choice but to show up. And now, you finally know how to turn the dial. Florence Scovel Shinn wasn't silenced by laws or prohibitions, she was nearly erased by a century of institutional silence. But tonight, for you, that silence has just shattered. You now know her name, you know her 3 core strategies, and you know precisely why the wealthy and powerful would prefer you to believe it's all nonsense. The real question is no longer, does this stuff actually work? Millions of lives over 100 years have already answered that. The only question that matters now is, am I brave enough to actually try it? The next time you're in a conversation and someone shrugs and says with cynical resignation, "That's just the way things are," or "money is tight," you don't have to argue with them, just smile. Because you are now part of a very small, very powerful club that knows the so-called secret wealth isn't a battle to be won, it's a vibration to be matched. And you've got the tuner for that vibration built right into your own mind and tongue. If you want to keep discovering the tricks, tools, and secrets the elites would charge you a fortune to learn, make sure you subscribe to this channel. And always remember this: the only real difference between the people who seem to have it all and the people who are still waiting for their turn is the story they choose to repeat to themselves every single day. So pick yours.